Test, test, 1, 2, test. Test.
Guys ready to go? Everybody ready?
Docket's only one item. That's it.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the City of East Providence City Council meeting. Today's meeting is based on a budget workshop. Today is Monday, September 26th. May we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
States of America, the Republic, and
Thank you. Deputy Clerk, may we start off with a roll call?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon,
Here, ma'am.
Councilman Morado.
Yep.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Here.
Councilman Souza is running slightly behind, and Council President Brito.
So today's meeting is to discuss the capital improvement budget. And I don't know where or how we want to start. We got a page 49. Jaman, you want to just go right in chronological order, or does anybody want to hop around for one reason or the other? Okay, so we do have the fire department here. Are you here to speak on behalf of the capital improvement for the fire department? You want to approach the podium and give us your thoughts? Good evening.
which was last year's that did not come to fruition due to difficulty with vendors. Trying to get vendors to actually bid or come meet with us and do specs. And then the timelines that it took for them to keep coming back. This year's replacement would be engine 5. So we're looking to do both engine 4 and engine 5 this year. We had carved out 200,000 for each for the first initial payment. But in working with the vendors that would actually work with us in our specs, we've narrowed it down to one who's responsive and responsible. And they've offered us a savings so that if we purchased both through them and paid for it all at one time, we would see a realization of possibly 70,000 plus savings. We're looking to try to do that with ARPA funding. And we're looking to bring that before the council on the next council meeting.
Is that 4 and 5?
4 and 5,
4 and
yes.
5. How come 5 has a negative $200,000?
Negative 200?
Well, yes, continuation. Oh, it's a dash? Okay. Sorry
It's a
about
positive.
that.
And we'll bring a comprehensive package before the council for the next meeting.
Why ARPA funding and not capital?
The one thing you can't do with ARPA is you cannot lease a vehicle. You can pay up front for it, but you can't lease. And by purchasing 2 from the same manufacturer was the most responsive. They will give us a savings of about $70,000. We purchase them both and pay for them up front.
So I've read through the ARPA guidelines. I don't see anywhere in there where it clearly says you purchase fire engines.
In the section, it's in the service of public safety, right? Police, fire, and EMS. I'm pretty sure that's in first section. And I know other communities have purchased vehicles with their funding.
Is Malcolm going to be at this meeting? Because I have a couple of finance questions for him.
I didn't see him. Maybe we could leave these in as a placeholder for capital for this year or this coming budget. And when we bring the resolution before the council for the contract and the proposed savings, we can deal with it from there. I'm looking for direction from the council.
Yeah, I'm So my gut reaction with anything ARPA is I think we're tapping into the ARPA well a lot for a lot of different things that maybe it necessarily wasn't intended for. And I'm not saying this is the case. I can easily make the case that the purchase of 2 fire engines is very much a responsibility of a city and is very much aligned with the idea of capital funding. I'm just trying hard to connect ARPA to the purchase of fire trucks and not to, the revitalization of businesses in the local area. We spent a lot of money on things like sewers and seawalls, and really get that we need those things, but we need to spend ARPA on some other things too.
That's understood. I mean, I think part of the reasoning, rationale behind that is the timetable that opera has. It's such a short timetable that some of these projects have long windows. We don't want to miss that timetable because the project takes so long. So this is an easily available thing that we can do. It's also time sensitive because of what the quote that you got, right? So that's kind of some of the reasoning behind it.
Mr. Gonzalez, though, the lead time is just as long as this project started prior to the expiration date. If I'm not mistaken, you could still proceed with the project in itself. Doesn't have to be completed by the date that was given, which I think is what, 2026?
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be completed, but it just has to be started or committed, if I'm not mistaken.
You are right, but it's kind of strategically, we're trying to plan out so that we can get our biggest bang for the buck. And some of these projects, as you know, they can go on forever, before we get something substantial, and there's delays because every community's trying to get their projects going at the same time. We were all dealing with the same kind of vendors. So it could be a problem. So to us, this was an easier one to be able to manage for us. I don't think Finance Director Malcolm Moore will be here.
So a great example, and I don't want to get too far off track. Now, we're talking about capital items, but we brought up ARPA. Read an article today in the Providence Journal. City of Denver is using ARPA funds to provide rent for empty storefronts, to bring businesses into empty storefronts. We've got tons of empty storefronts. I think we certainly would have a goal to, shape the businesses and the corridors and the various economic, areas of the city in a way that strategically made sense for the city, right? ARPA can do that, capital funding cannot, right? You can't use capital funds. So I get a little when we're going to use ARPA funds for things that capital can be used for, and the things that could be completely transformed using ARPA funds are going to remain the way that they are, right? I think it's short-sighted.
I think that we're also exploring other options other than ARPA to be able to accomplish the same thing. I know there has been some discussion about the storefronts and being able to revitalize the storefronts and utilizing other funds that are available to us throughout the state.
And when are we going to see that plan? When is the council going to see what the plan is for ARPA revitalization kind of citywide?
I'd expect relatively soon. I don't have the exact date for you, but
okay. I'm very much looking forward to that. And I have been for some time, and I'm hesitant to authorize expenditure of ARPA funds until I see what right? Because we spent a lot of ARPA money. I know we got a lot of ARPA, but we've spent quite a bit. And I don't want to be in a position where, well, here's our ARPA plan, but we've only got 25% of the funding because we've spent it on fire trucks and sewers and seawalls, et cetera.
Do we have a running balance for what we started off with ARPA and where we are today? And what's the expenditures between when we received the money up until the present time?
I'd have to defer that to our finance director.
I was just curious to see exactly where we stand and if there's other commitments, so we know exactly where.
And
We'll point to test to what the councilman is saying.
Mr. President, did you say finance director is not coming tonight?
This meeting.
What?
We was under the impression this meeting was strictly the planning as far as the capital. So we made other plans.
I very much support the idea of the purchase of 2 new fire engines, especially under the terms that you laid out, Chief. I would have a preference for seeing that come out of capital.
Well, I just want to add my support for the 2 fire apparatus. We want to keep the quality of our fire service high as it is now, and I'm sure we can sort out the the funding. Councilman makes some good points, but between opera and capital, we're capable of doing this. So we need to do it. The one question I would ask, I know when we purchased the big ladder truck, that could take over a year. It did
Correct.
take over a year.
Correct. And one of the vendors was actually pushing that 2 years to realize the vehicle. I believe the one that we've come to is talking about 460 days, which is way better than 2 years.
So the sooner we act.
We could actually
Better.
drop the 460, but we would have to take away a penalty clause. So we always put a penalty clause, $100 each day that it's late. And we've actually activated that in purchases in the past. And it kind of just keeps the nose to the grindstone to make sure we get the vehicle on time.
Thank you.
Yeah, could we, so we don't beat this to death any further, could we add an item to the next council, the regular council meeting specifically to address ARPA status? You know, I'm looking for what has come into the city so far, kind of an itemized list. I think we largely know what it's been itemized for, but an itemized list of what it's been expended for to date. And I know we saw a bear plan a few months ago. I'd kind of like to see an update to that plan. What we're planning for going forward.
Are we also going to be able to ask Malcolm capital budget questions when he's here at the October 4th meeting?
I don't see why not.
So Malcolm does have that information. I actually asked for it a few workshops ago, and he did provide it to me. Currently, the city's received 13 million in opera, and we have 13 left. And it looks as though the administration has budgeted 4 million towards economic impact. So storefront improvements, facade, tourism.
Yeah, and I think probably the council wants to weigh in on that, right? Personally, I'm not sure that's the balance that I want to see, right? 4 out of 13 for economic impact type stuff. That's just me, but I
There's
think I'd like
13.
us to have that conversation
There's 13 more still to be.
to become, right? There was the 2 tranches.
So.
Any further questions for me?
No, doesn't appear that way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Borges?
Evening, everyone.
Evening.
EPW has quite a few requests this year. Most of them related to equipment replacement. Our largest request being city road improvements. We'd like to continue paving city streets. If you'd like me to go, I can go through every item, or if you want me to, if you have questions, I can, however
Why
you
don't we
want.
do this at the pleasure of the council? If anyone has any questions regarding anything that is being presented on this capital improvement for DPW, because there is quite a few of them. And as opposed to going each and every one of them, again, if the council decides that that's what they want, that's perfectly fine with me. However, we have any specific questions for any of these items that are on here? This will be a good time also. to
I
ask
have a
those
question
questions.
on the million for the road repairs, actually.
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
The road repair, the $1 million for the continue of paving roads, correct?
Yes.
What's the remainder of that 10 million from the previous council? What do we have left of that 10 million?
There's not much. I can give you a better sense. I want to say there's about 600,000, which will get us through the list that I shared with you some time back. That'll get us through those streets, and we're looking to continue to address other roadways that we've been waiting on National Grid to, or excuse me, Rhode Island Energy to clear with either gas work, so whatever it may be, before we actually repave them.
And will the city be able to do $1 million worth of paving in this next fiscal year?
$1 million will go very quickly.
It's like Roger Williams Avenue.
Probably half of Roger Williams Avenue. I'm also gonna, I can talk on behalf of Treasury and the Senior Center. Those are both, public building related. So if you have questions on those, I can certainly elaborate. Just figured I'd mention that.
Mr. Borges, can we have for the next meeting, the updated list of remaining streets that came off of that big list priority, what the next priority streets are throughout the city, not necessarily for the next fiscal year, but just in general, to see how much we have actually done with the 10 million and how much left in the city is remaining based on their evaluation.
Yeah, I can get you that.
Thank you.
Is it also possible at some point to get an update on the remaining projects from past capital improvements? I know it's just over $5 million left unencumbered projects.
Remaining projects being projects that have been funded over the last few years. You want a status on each one of the projects?
If we could, yes.
Sure.
I'm more interested in the gazebo on the Willow Pond.
I can give you that update now if you'd like it.
Sure, please.
We are waiting on DEM to give us approval to essentially put that in. The issue we've come across is seeing that we're changing the pavement in that parking lot from traditional blacktop to pervious pavement to help with water quality. They have us, or they require us to do significant drainage calculations, very similar to what we experienced with the Riverside middle school parking lot. So we're unfortunately waiting on that, and they have limited staff, and that obviously causes delays. So it's in the works. We're actually looking at purchasing the gazebo now, so that by the time it's approved, because the likelihood of it not being approved is very slim. So
Thank you.
hope is to, order it now.
Quick question regarding the buildings at Pierce Field. Concession stand and the bathroom, not so much a concession stand, but the bathroom itself. Didn't that have major renovations just a couple of years ago?
There was some money allocated to that. It was prior to my time, so I'm not too sure the scope of work for that, but I can certainly get you additional.
So there was money, right, there was money already allocated for it. Has that money been used?
It has, for the most part. We have some remaining funds that we're looking to replace the partitions in the bathrooms, the stalls in the bathroom.
And what would the 75,000 do for, other than the petitions?
There's significant repairs that need to be made to the building.
The
and also
building itself.
dugouts. Yeah, the fire department actually helped the city quite a bit with doing some work on some of the dugouts, but that money would be to do miscellaneous building improvements throughout that facility.
So I have.
I have a couple, if I may. Dan, the Bobcat, 2 Bobcat loaders for sidewalk. Assuming that's for snow removal, right? Where, like what in front of city buildings primarily, or?
We have a slew of roadways that we're responsible for, sidewalks are responsible for maintaining. The intent with these Bobcats is they're actually small loaders. They're units that'll be versatile outside of just cleaning sidewalks. So the intent is to really streamline the process that we currently have, which is using an oversized Bobcat skid steer to clean city sidewalks. And also in many cases, we maintain a lot of the state sidewalks since the state doesn't do it.
So, like, give me an example, state sidewalk, using the sidewalk on a
Tucker
state road.
Avenue, Broadway overpass, 195, below the 195 overpass, those sidewalks need to be done. I want to say there's 4 to 6 miles of sidewalk. Don't quote me on that. I can get you the list of it if you'd like. We have a spreadsheet with all the city maintained sidewalks.
I'm thinking primarily, like, the 2 roads that concern me most with snow are Pawtucket Avenue and Broadway, right? Specifically leading up to the high school, Kent Heights School, and Orlo, right? Because when the state plows come down, they bury those sidewalks regardless of whether the people clean them off, and then it becomes a glacier, right? So these Bobcats could be used to ensure that those glaciers are removed and kids can pass safely up the streets.
Yeah, these units are about 30 inches wide, so they're just wide enough to, fit most sidewalks. Will have a snow blower attachment on the front with heated cabin, so like the operator can just go. We don't have to, put the Bobcat on a trailer, drop the Bobcat off, clean a section of sidewalk, put the Bobcat back on the trailer, move it further up the road. These guys can actually use these vehicles on the sidewalks and just go.
So you don't use the sweepers, you use a snow blower. And I see what you've done on Pawtucket Avenue, especially primarily over by Agamon. And the city does a really good job over there as well.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the amount of snow. If it's a light snow, the intent would be to purchase sweeper attachment that you could actually just brush the
Right.
snow off. It's a light, fluffy snow.
Mhm.
But I mean, we all know the 18 to 24 inches we got this past winter. We were struggling to address sidewalks in a efficient manner. So these will help us, combat that immediately after a storm, after we're done plowing.
I have one more question, if I may. Going back to our old issue with regard to the over by the Veterans Memorial Park where the Flags Park is, right? There's that pond there, which effectively scums over, by May. And we've talked about kind of treatment with that, with DEM. Where do we stand on that? And can we get any help in the capital budget to address what needs to be done?
So we've obviously submitted to, this is CRMC. They have jurisdiction over this pond, so it makes it a little more complicated compared to Willett and Jones Pond, which we've been actively treating for the last year. I'm, optimistic that we should see some sort of response from CRMC over the winter months would be ideal. That way we can look to treat that pond. I should have money in my general budget to cover that expense because it's going to be a reoccurring expense. So that was actually put into, I factored for that in the general expenses under purchase professional services. I put an increase in that line item. So there's significant money in there to cover that expense when the time comes. We got quotes and everything for that.
President, one question on the total amount of the capital projects that we're talking about. Maybe finance director would have to answer this. I don't know, but is this total is not part of that 5 million that we've talked about that is unencumbered, correct? So this is new. Okay. And hopefully finance director will be at the next meeting. I'm very supportive of the finance director and our staff, but I do think a budget workshop, we should have a budget official here, to answer some of these questions, but I think we have plenty of time for next meeting. So this is the new account. Okay, thank you.
Catch basins, I just want to talk about that a little, not the vehicle itself, cleans them out. But do we have the vehicles to clean them out? Now they're in good shape. Have those been cleaned out? So when we have these rainstorms, and I know it's just going to cost handle it. However, but when it just rains, it's nothing substantial. Is that because basins are full, especially this time of the year?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the area, but if typically we're pretty proactive when it comes to knowing storms going to come. We'll go and jet lines, and we have a jet truck and a vac truck, jet vac truck that's one unit, and then we also have a clamor bucket truck that actually will pull the.
So I'm used to seeing,
out.
that's why.
Yep. Okay, we have both.
And you're good with this? I mean, we have enough.
Yeah, I mean, they're older pieces of equipment. We're probably looking to replace those in the next, 3 to 5 years, but they're still operational, and we have some money to replace the body on one of those vehicles. It's still working order.
Because I know, the rainstorms that we've been getting, it's been an issue and a problem with some of them backing up. We want to just make sure that it's clean and clear, especially during the 4 months when, the leaves are constantly falling on the ground and in the sewers and being washed down as well. Okay. So you're
And-
good with those?
Just to piggyback off of the council president, do we have a schedule where the city sweepers are gonna be coming out? for the
Uh,
fall?
I can get you that schedule. They've actually already been through the city twice. If there's any roadways that you need addressed, you can certainly send them my way. But we're essentially done with keeping.
When did they go out last?
When
Last
we
week.
out
I
last?
saw one out last week.
Yeah, they were out as early as last week. I think we still have one out. I'm not sure where they are in the city at this point, but
And it would do, I know the state streets are state streets, but are we going down, touching some of those? Because I know when we had that flooding on certain state streets, there was an extreme amount of debris left over.
Yep.
And then to the council president's point, all of that sand and stuff now is kind of hovering around those drainage.
Yeah, we've addressed most of those areas. I know City Hall, in particular, Grove Ave was a mess. We came next day after the storm and addressed some of those problem areas, but I mean, certainly possibility that we missed some. If you know of any, just let me know and I just.
Okay. Perfect. It's around Waterman Ave area.
Waterman, anywhere in particular? off of Waterman?
Where the church, Saint.
Okay.
Lady of Loretto, thank you.
I know the police chief's not here. I can talk on behalf of those two. They're also public buildings. It's a boiler replacement for the police station. And animal control, the HVAC unit on the water heater are past their useful life, so they're just replacements of those units. So if any questions on that, I can,
How old is the current unit that's in there?
not sure.
Old?
We put Band-Aids on everything.
Time to fix them. Replace them. Not
Yes.
fix them, replace them. That, usually the lifespan's about what, 15, 20 years?
About.
And you're looking to do something energy efficient. Why?
Correct. Yeah, we'll take advantage of any
Rebates.
rebates that Rhode Island Energy offers. We typically, and we'll work with contractors willing to honor those rebates. So we should see some savings as part of that.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fazioli? Find the page.
We just have the two that are assigned to planning, but we work closely with the Public Works Department and it's the tree plantings for 50,000 and the public art for 50,000. Just again, to make recurring investments, ongoing programs. The tree planting, we work closely with the Tree Commission on identifying priorities, where to plant trees on city property. We also have a program for people who are interested have trees planted on city property where the city will provide that for the homeowner as well. That seems to be working out really well. And then the public art, a lot of the art you see is leased. So we expect it to be a recurring expense. There'll be some new items I think, we thought about in terms of where they would want to be located. And it's not just the art piece, but it's the installation costs, the concrete pads, sometimes you have to do conduit, the electrical, things of that nature. So, that all goes out of that budget.
Those streets that do not have sidewalks, do they qualify for any of the trees as well?
Yeah, again, working with Public Works, they help us identify where good locations are. Also with the Tree Commission, they give us some insights on where good locations for trees are, depending on the nature of the sidewalk. And, if it's city right away, if we have access to it, we can put a tree there.
Right, and the city, and correct me if I'm wrong, from the curb, 5 feet in?
I think that's the standard.
Is the standard.
It actually depends on the right of way width. The 24-foot right of way, which is street's actually 8 feet from essentially the curb. It's 8 feet outside of the right of way.
Oh, 8 feet. Wow.
A lot of the new sidewalks, Public Works is putting in, we're pre-planting tree wells, so we don't have to, rip up the concrete that, in the future. It gives the room for roots to grow. So there's a lot of coordination going on in those things.
Mr. Borges, you and I had talked about this some time ago, and it pertains to the conversation we have with respect to sidewalks. Years ago, they used to have a curb program. And obviously that curb program no longer exists. How did that work in the past? And did it require a substantial amount of investment from the city because there is still some.
I remember that. Yeah, no, that was a great program. I think it was the city manager Lamont put that in and finance director Jim McDonald's, where it allowed the homeowner to put granite curbing in front of their street, and the city would it would allow them to pay for that over like 3 years or 5 years, rather than having to bear the expense all at once. So the city upfronted the money, and then the homeowner would pay almost like a little assessment to the city
So if money was put aside in the capital improvement budget, not to say that it is, but the homeowner would still have to pay for it?
Oh, no. If we wanted, if the other program was, it was really funded by the city, it was upfronted, but it was reimbursed by the homeowner. But if you want to put money in the capital budget for curbing, you can certainly do that. A lot of,
It become a very expensive process.
oh
for
yeah,
the homeowner.
granted right now, even if you can get granted, it's very, very difficult, so. But those are all good points, but the tree planting is, it's a coordinated effort with Dan, Johanna, Walzak in my office, and it's become quite popular in the city, so.
Yeah, I'll talk to you offline about that.
The one question on the public art, the sculptures on the bike path in Riverside Square. Are those leased or?
Those are purchased.
Those are purchased.
Yeah, we got those from a grant, actually. So those were secured by.
I like to see them stay. They're
Yeah, they
very
will.
popular. They're nice.
Some of the items in the sculpture park at the end of Warren and Waterfront Drive, those are leased. The lanterns are purchased. The items, the paintings inside within the lanterns, I think those are meant to rotate every so often. So we'll be buying new ones every so often. So
About outside here as an example of City Hall, the clock tower and the
Right.
lighthouse, that's.
yeah, we own that. We
You
own
own
that
that.
now. Yeah. But again, the idea is to replace that artwork every so often just to give it a
Relax.
refresh. So.
Is that-
Thanks.
Is that displayed at night? Does it have?
We just signed contracts to have the electrical conduit put in. And that the idea of that is to be lit up at night. That's why it has that lantern feature. But there's other parts of the city where we might want to continue that theme and sort of make a real lantern trail.
Are those slits that would be able, like panels that you'd be able to take out, store and put new ones in?
Exactly. Yeah,
Rotate throughout
Yep.
the city,
exactly.
just have like a collection.
Yeah, exactly. That's marine plywood, so very, very hardy material. So, but the idea is to rotate them and do a process. There's also discussions with some business owners are putting murals on their buildings where the city a lot of times has to match a grant. They have to come up with a grant fund for that. So there's other ideas going on in public art.
How much off the top of your head are we paying for renting that art display down on Waterfront?
I think we have 3 years at about 5,500. Yeah. Oh, no, total.
3
Yeah,
years.
yeah. Yeah, no, that would.
Any other questions for Mr. Fazioli?
And there was only one other item I want to touch upon on the ramp for Kettle Point. We got that ramp built and donated to us. After it was installed, we got a call from the governor's office on disabilities, and they suggested a new enhancement to the ramp to make it even more ADA compatible. It's to lower certain portions of the ramp, so of the siding, so people who want to fish, if they're in a wheelchair or whatever, there's room for them to cast out, so it's not so high. It's a feature of the one in Rocky Point now, so we're going to make those changes on our own.
So would that be renovated to accommodate that, or would it
Yes.
be
Yeah.
addition to?
No, I think that's something we could handle in-house, right, Dan? And we just would pay for the materials and supplies.
I'm good. Thank you. Doesn't appear that, let me see, unless I'm wrong. Somebody
That's
correct
it.
me. That's it. You already did it for us. Today's, I don't have it. Is there anything else on there other than the capital? It's the only thing we can-
Motion to adjourn?
Just 1 second. Director Board, just gonna ask you one question. I know we
Rescind
touched
that.
on
I'm gonna rescind that motion.
the mural that was done on the bike path behind that private building, those shrubs that were potentially accidentally planted. Any plans to remove that this fall?
Yeah, we can certainly consider doing that.
Thank you.
Councilwoman, considering that you rescinded,
I'd like to reinstate that motion to adjourn, please.
motion on the floor to adjourn. Would like to second that motion?
I'll second.
Many seconds. Third. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you.